Learning about Gemara. Today's daf is daf Lamed Beis, the beginning of the third Pedic. We'll start from Lamed Aleph Amud Beis, where the third Pedic begins. Says the Mishnah, the beginning of Lamed Aleph Amud Beis, the very bottom of the page. Kol hapsulim, all those who are disqualified, and I will soon itemize them, who are disqualified from doing the work in the base of Mikdash, like accepting the blood, transporting the blood, sprinkling the blood. All of those are yet permitted to do the shchita. The slaughtering part of the carbon is not considered an avodah that requires a kohen. So kol hapsulim sheshachtu, that if they shechted shchitas and ksheira, it's a valid shchita. Shashchita ksheira bezarim, a Yisrael is permitted to shecht. Uvenashim, a woman is permitted to shecht. And we'll learn the Gemara Chulin. The very big first mission is, everyone can shecht, including women. And Tesis over here, very interesting, brings down that not like those who want to argue that a woman can shecht is only b'di'evid, even lechatchila, from the outset, a woman can shecht. And he proves it from the syntax of the Gemara that when it comes to Tameim, we're going to say that it's only if they did it, it's all right. But all other cases of the Mishnah, even lechatchila, from the outset they can. So women aren't permitted to shecht, and this that it says in other places they can. The Hilchas Yisrael, he says, interesting, says at the end of the first cases on the Gemara here, he says these are chumras ba'alma that the author decided to put in. So in other words, he holds, in fact, I think in Panama, when I was in Venezuela, the sheikh there was a woman in Panama, following B'S Yosef, that a woman can shecht. Okay. Says the Mishnah further in the Lamed Aleph Beis. So all those who are apostle to do different avodas, they're permitted to shecht, even a Yisrael, women, avodim, an eved, kanani, ubet tmeim. If they are tamei, we'll discuss soon how exactly they shecht when they're tamei. But afilu bekotche kotchim. Even if it's like karmachatas, shchita part of it is not an avodah. When we say a tamei is permitted to shecht, he cannot obviously touch the flesh because then he'll contaminate the carbon. So we're talking about that he's using either a knife that's not a proper knife. He's using, like Rashi says, a reed, which is basically Morachul. He's using a reed, which is like a flat. It's called a pshute clay eight, and any keli which is flat, size metal, is not makabel tumah. So therefore, it doesn't transfer the tumah to the animal. Or, for example, he is only a rishon l'tumah. But he touched a sheretz. A sheretz is an avad tumah. He's a rishon. A rishon l'tumah could only contaminate food, and he's holding onto a knife. A knife is a keli, and he cannot contaminate the keli, so therefore it doesn't transfer to the animal. That's how it's possible to shecht, and the animal remains tahor. And if it's a mace, then he uses a reed, a pshute. Excuse me. Therefore, if at the time of shchita they have the wrong, pigul, they have the wrong time, the wrong place, it ruins the carbon because it's a proper shchita. The kula, but all of these people who are apostle, shekibus adam, received the blood, chutzlas mane, chutzlas mekayme. So they did, they accepted the blood and they had the wrong thoughts in mind. They have no impact on it. So the blood that they used obviously cannot be reused. But im yesh dam hanefesh. But if there's more blood coming out, spurting out from the nefesh, adam shanefesh yeitzavot, another proper kohen can take over and have the right thoughts there. Kibel hakosher. We had this before already. If a kosher received the blood, the nasan leposel, and he transferred it to a kohen standing there who happens to be posel, a lefty, a balmum, whatever it is, yachde le kosher. What he does is he returns to the kosher. We had a whole discussion, if you remember, earlier on in Zevachim, if you transport without moving your feet, just your hands, is that considered a transport or not? And if you learn that it's considered a transport, then we're saying that it's talking about over here that the guy is behind you, so it didn't move forward at all. Kibul be yamina v'nasan l'smayla. If the kohen took with the right hand, then he passed it on to his left hand. Yeah, absolutely. All we have to do is bring it back to the right hand and continue. It doesn't passel it, just it didn't. Nothing happened. Kibul be you received it properly in a proper utensil, a sacred keli, and then you pass it on to a mundane keli. All you have to do is yachzer le kodesh. Put it back like kodesh as long as you don't move forward, and then you move on. Then we also had the next section of Mishnah. We learned if the blood goes straight from the animal to the floor, you can't use the blood. But nishpech menakli, if it landed in a keli, and then from the keli landed ala rispa, it landed on the ground, then we learned that The also you can gather and you gather together blood kosher. You collected the blood is kosher because it landed in the keli. So nothing when it landed in the floor, nothing really happened. You just put it back and you can use it again. Nosnu al gabe hakevesh shaloi keneged hayisoid. If you placed it on the ramp, but not on the that's case number one. Or case number two, shaloi keneged hayisoid. When you sprinkle it on the walls of the beich, on 2.5 sides, we have on there's one corner that has no base, and that you shouldn't be spraying it on that corner. If you spray it in that corner, it is no good on the southeastern corner. And nosan as anit lemata lemaila, you sprinkled on the wrong part of his beach below the line, which should be above the line. Nit lemaila lemata above the line, below the line. Vesanitin b'fnim b'chutz, so that belongs in the inner mizbeach. You put on the outer mizbeach. Nitin b'chutz b'fnim. So we said, im yesh dam hanefesh. If there's still more blood coming out, yachdun hakosher v'kabel. Just take that blood and do the right thing with it. Says the Gemara. And we had different ways of understanding it, whether if you sprinkle in the wrong place, it's considered sprinkling, or not. Because if depending on which way you learn, then depends what happens to the rest of the blood. But anyway, it says the Gemara. The Mishnah says that if they shechted it, it's all right. They have it. What the you can't have a yisrael shechting. But I mean, that's a question. It says in the pasuk shachat. It says in the pasuk that you should shech the animal, and it says shchita bizar ksheira. Anybody can shecht. Shashchita ksheira bizarim, and it says beferish that a shchita can be kosher by yisrael, benoshim, women, avodim, mitmeim. V'afilu bekachim, you kachim. How do I know? Maybe only koinim are the ones who are allowed to shech the carbon. Amrit, we say. Why would you say koinim? Because there's another passage where it says that you and your family is a tishmunus b'konaschem. You should guard your kahuna and maintain it. Anything that relates to mizbech. So we would have thought Yachol Av B'Shchita also relates to Mizbech. Tamalem, if you go back to that first passage we just brought, it says V'Shachar is Ben Abaka Lifnei Hashem. You should check the Ben Abaka, and only afterwards it says V'Yikrivi B'nei Aaron. Only afterwards it says that B'nei Aaron should be involved. So which stage? The next stage, receiving the blood. Only there Kuna kicks in. Mekabal Elik Mizakuna Liman Al Shchita Shekshevach Alazna comes to teach us Shchita is kosher by every person. So l'chayda, why is the Mishnah say? But the ever call of shechtu to say l'chatzila shechtin. Says, well, you're right. Who are the nami? They're all allowed to l'chatzila. Navas umishum the kabayla mishnah tmeim. One of the psulim mentions here is somebody who was tamei. The l'chatzila, even if you follow the methods that we said, they use a reed, a sharpened reed, or he's only tamei sheda. The l'chatzila is not a good idea. Why not? Because we are worried shema yigu bebasa. The Rabbanan are worried that he might touch the meat directly. But everything else in the Mishnah is lechatchila, and that's Taisa's proof that women lechatchila are allowed to shach. Is Tana sheshachtu. That's why it says sheshachtu. Ask the Gemara. The Tomei Diyevet Chapadame, you're telling me that, okay, let's have another question. That a Tomei person, if they did it, it's all right. Let me ask a question. We know that the step prior to shchita is smicha. You have to lean on the animal. And we have a rule, Takif l'smicha shchita. We don't want any interruption, any interval at all between the two. We want to be in succession of the next one. So it says in one pasuk, v'samach. The first part says v'samach. You should lean your hand on the head of the oila and to be atoned. And the very next pasuk it says v'shachat. Now in the pasuk v'shachat it says you should check where lifnei Hashem. That means in the section where the Beis HaMikdash is, we had three opinions whether it has to be on the north side of the Mizbeach or even the north side of the Mizbeach plus more west between the Mizbeach and the Beis HaMikdash. According to the Rebbe, even east all the way to the Sha'anik, all the way to the Ezra's Kohanim, Ezra's Yisrael. But that's it. It has to be in that whole inner sanctum, the whole inner section. So. It says v'samach v'shachad. Now by smicha it doesn't say lifnei Hashem, but because we don't want any interval between the two, so therefore the smicha has to be right where the shchita is. So let me ask you a question. It says v'samach v'shachad ma smicha b'teirim, just like smicha has to be done by Torah. This is the first version. We'll soon see how we know that. So we have to make sure the shchita has to be done by people who are kosher. So the Talmudic person will soon explore how do you know that has to be smichas b'b'tayrim. But let's assume that it does. So smichas b'b'tayrim, so does the shchita. So what do you tell me, Maisa, that Tameim, if they shechted, it's all right? Says the Gemara midrabanan. Even though we bring this equation, samach v'shachat, it's only midrabanan. So I'm asking our question. Let's understand what you said here. You said it's a given that smicha has to be done by Tahirim. We're also going to learn from there that shchita also. Where does it say smicha has to be done by Tahirim? So you want to ask, Ma'ishna smicha. The ksiv lifnei Hashem, it's written lifnei Hashem. Now, the truth be told, nowhere does it say lifnei Hashem by smicha. In fact, where does it say the word lifnei Hashem? By shchita. But because we have this rule that taking the smicha shchita, it has to be done straight away. So it's as if the smicha also has to be lifnei Hashem. So the Gemara's question is even stronger now. So smicha is lifnei Hashem, shchita now makes it lifnei Hashem, shchita also lifnei Hashem. So why do you have to learn shchita from smicha? Shchita says directly lifnei Hashem, has to be lifnei Hashem. So the Gemara and Ochma. So then, what do you tell me that b'diavad tameim? If it has to be lifnei Hashem, how can a Talmudic person walk in there? You're not allowed, a tummy is not allowed to walk in. There are three different levels of tummy. We had in Psochim Barichos. There are three different levels. You have the base of Mikdash itself, and you have the Harabayis and have Yerushalayim, which equates to the three levels we have in the Midbar. And a Matzorah can't be in Yerushalayim. Everyone else can. A Zov cannot be in the Machna Leviyah, which is the Harabayis. Harabayis incorporates the Chel, those 10 amas deep, and then also incorporates the Ezras Noshim, which is the section of the women, 135 amas long. And then you walk up the steps, and then you have the Ezras Yisrael, Ezras Kainim, which is considered, that's not called Harabayis. Harabayis is the Ezras Noshim and the Chel. And then you have up there, that's called the Beis HaMikdash. That's the Makkah Mashchina. So I have a question. How can Yeshech lifnei Hashem and be tummy? Because the animal has to be by the Beis HaMikdash, and even and Azava, nobody can be there. Tummy Meis, asking Gemara, you can make a very long knife, v'shachit, and Teisarei discusses. You know how long the knife has to be? 135 amas long. It's impossible to do that. So someone will say that the front is 135 amas, but you can go around the side. And somehow or another, you can. It's much smaller. It's much less. It's much less. It's much less. Yeah. But anyway, says the Gemara further. So it's Smicha Smicha also, there's a possibility for him to efshe de meyayil yoda. Why can't he be standing and just put his hands, because you know that the Mitzvah, for example, has to walk all the way to the Shah Nikanor. So the Shah Nikanor was the entrance, the main entrance to go into the Beis HaMikdash from the east to the west, which is how they went. So there was the Mitzvah had to get the blood of the carbon ashram had to go on his right thumb and his right, all that, and the oil. So they deliberately made that the Shah Nikanor should not be sanctified, shouldn't become holy, so that the Mitzvah should be able to stand there. So the Gemara has a question: why can't this tummy person go there and stick his hand in and just place the smicha, so he's not walking into that section? So so tummy can also do smicha. Says the Gemara, Kasavra be mikdash mabiyah. He holds that even just putting your hand in is considered is already a Talmudic person walking in. That's forbidden, and that is forbidden. So therefore, smicha is definitely forbidden. Shchita, you can do it from outside having a long knife. Smicha is impossible, so therefore we know for sure smicha has to be done by hator. So we're only shchita the same thing. So we're saying that comparison of shchita to smicha is only midrabanan. That's what chatchili shouldn't do it, but b'diavad it's all right. That's one version. Rav Chizda master if Rav Chizda the other way around. Because where does it say the word lifnei Hashem? By shchita, not by smicha. So he says the samach v'shachad mashchita b'toydin, just like shchita has to be done by a Torah because it says lifnei Hashem, is af smicha b'toydin. So we learn that smicha also has to be done somebody Torah. Ma'ishnos, he more asks the same question, but the same. Why is it a given shchita diksi lifnei Hashem? Because it says it has to be done before Hashem. No smicha na miksi lifnei Hashem. Smicha also says lifnei Hashem. So we answered, this view holds that bia b'miktzas loishme bia. When are you chayiv if you're tummy walking into the base of Mikdash? Or in that area is only if you walk in with your entire body or a majority of your body. Just putting your hands inside is not a problem. So therefore, mahatoida, we would have thought there's no problem just standing outside and putting your hands smicha. You can be tummy as well. And a live animal doesn't become tummy when a tummy person touches it. After the maral yodi, you can put your hand in the samich and do your smicha. So therefore, we have to learn smicha from shchita. According to this version, we're learning smicha from shchita that a tummy shouldn't be involved. So I think more to know if that's the logic. Shchita nami efshadovid sakin rucha can't have a long knife b'shachit. So we answer no. This view holds Hamani Shimon Hatimni. This Bryce was author was Shimon Hatimni. He says that when you shech, you have to stand next to your animal. You can't be standing outside with this long knife. You have to be standing next to your animal. So therefore, shchita definitely has to be done by a Torah because you're inside the base of Mikdash. We would have thought that's smicha. You can just put your hands in because bia b'miktzas lo shema bia. The first opinion says the animal has to be lifnei Hashem, but not the sheikhid. You can be standing outside. You know that the sheikhid also has to be where the animal is. Sheikhid is ben habaka yehi lifnei Hashem. That also the sheikhid has to be standing there as well. So Tomei obviously cannot be involved in shchita. Now that we mentioned Biba Mixes, so therefore we're going to discuss now if you only partially inside the base of English, how do we deal with that? If a Talmudic person put his hands in the inside, just his hands, like in other words, this opinion says that even if you didn't walk in with your entire body into the base of English, even into that section, or even the majority about it, just place your hand. It's enough to say that you were tummy and you entered. Because bia b'mitzvah, even a small entrance is considered an entrance. Shenema, how do I know that? Because one pasuk says, "B'chol kodesh," this woman who sits 33 days after giving birth. And during that time, and then all the blood is, because you have 7 days of Bayezachar, 7 days that are Torah, then 33 days of Tama, and during that time she shouldn't touch any Kodesh, and she shouldn't walk into the base of Mikdash. So it says here, the Chol Kodesh Leisiga, shouldn't touch any Kodesh, and it says you shouldn't walk in the base of Mikdash. So just like touching is only with your hands, so too walking in the base of Mikdash means also just with your hands. Makish Bil in the gear. Managir touching Mikdash, Shmonagir, even touching a little bit is called touching. Is Af Bia Mikdash Wabi. Also entering is called entering. Esaver Habhoisha Ula, so Habhoisha asked Ula a question. Mitzayda shechol shminish on Mitzayda. So Mitzayda, had to wait the 7 days, and then then he has to wait for the 8th day to bring a carbon before he's able to be involved in kachim. So Mitzayda by Mitzayda shechol shminish shaloi li is better paid. What happened? The 8th day happens to be on Erev Pesach. Is Erev Pesach. And the raw keri b'yam. So it's not a problem, right? Erev Pesach, so he brings his carbon, he's all right. But the problem was he couldn't bring a carbon then because he became a Baal Keri. In other words, he had an emission. You had an emission. Because what happens, the Mitzvah is on the 8th day, he goes into the Harabayis and he goes to this gate called the entrance called Sha'ar Nikanor. And that was, as you said before, deliberately was not consecrated so that he can stand there and place his thumbs and his right toe and all that. And inside the base of Midrash so that they can put blood of the Asham there and also the oils that have to go on there. So it says over here, so what happens? But on the 8th day, he was about to go in, then suddenly he saw a Keri, and the Keri has to wait all day, become tired. And he went to the mikveh, Keri by Yom, V'tabel, he went to the mikveh. Now he's a tful, so he's called a tful Yom of a Zav. And the question is, does he have the same status as a Zav? Or do we say because he already went to the mikveh, even though he has to wait till sunset, but he's still he's already no longer the same degree as a Zav, and he's allowed to walk inside because a Zav can't walk into the Harabayis either. A Zav has to be outside of 2 camps. A Tummy Mace can walk into the Harabayis, but a Zav is stricter and he cannot walk into the Harabayis. But this is a Tvul Yom of a Zav. How do we treat that? So a Tvul Yom who actually enters the base of Midrash gets chorus, but over here he's standing outside. So what happens here? Generally speaking, a Tvul Yom is just treated just like a Zav, can't walk into even the Ezra's Nashim. Nevertheless, Zen Nichnas, we're going to make an exception. In this case here, this Mitzvah, on Erev Pesach, when you have to bring a Korban Pesach, which is so stringent, if you don't bring it, you get Karis, we're going to remove, or we're going to suspend this rule about the Tvul Yom of a Zav, and we're going to allow him to walk into the Ezra's Nashim so that he can become Torah. Any other Tvul cannot walk in. Why? Mutiv, it is better. Yavai asay sheyesh by koros. Let the asay of Korban Pesach, which has koros, and yitche and reject asay this aveda she'ain by koros. That is in this section of Harabayis, even though he shouldn't be there, it's an avera. The Torah says it's an asay that everyone whose tummy should walk out. Fine. So it's an asay. An asay with koros is stronger, and therefore it pushes it away.
Can I ask something?
Yeah.
Why do they have to say that at all? Why couldn't he just be part of a group and the group go in and do it and he stands outside?
Yeah, but he at the moment he is, because he has to become Torah, otherwise he cannot eat from the base. He will not be able to eat from the Korban Pesach that night if he doesn't get, because he's a Mitzvah. And the only way a Mitzvah can eat is he has to have the oil and the blood from the Usham on his right toe and his right thumb.
So it's not to do with sacrificing, it's to do with eating.
Eating the Korban Pesach. He's not allowed to eat, he's not allowed to eat the Korban Pesach until that's done. If he can't eat the Korban Pesach, then he's not part of it. So we wanted to enable him to eat the Korban Pesach. So, but now we have another problem, another layer of being a Zav, and he did go to the mikveh. And this view holds that even though you went to the mikveh, you're still treated like a Zav, but it's a lesser Aveda to walk into the Aveda for a Zav to walk into the Harabayis is a mitzvah asay. You're over a mitzvah asay. Not having the Korban Pesach is a asay. The punishment is karis, which is the strictest Averis. So we decide, you know what? We're going to allow him. We're going to the bigger Aveda is Korban Pesach, so we're going to make a special exception here. That's the view of the first opinion. That's Rabbi Ishia. Rabbi Yechanan disagrees. Rabbi Yechanan says, sorry, that's the view of the Brisa. Come to Rabbi Yechanan, he says, I disagree. The Var Torah, according to the Torah, Afila saying boy, I hold that once he went to the mikveh, this Zav, it's only Midrabanan. According to the Torah, he is allowed to walk in the Harabayis, and therefore surely he will tell him walk in, because it's a Rabbanan versus an Asay with Karas. Of course, you bring the Korban Pesach. So it says, how do I know it's only Midrabanan? Because it says, "Vayamid Yeshafat Bekal Yehuda." Yeshafat stood there in the community of Yehuda Yerushalayim, the base Hashem, in the house of Hashem, Lifnei HaChatzer Chadash, before the new courtyard. What new courtyard did they build? We have no record of any new courtyard being built in the base of Mikdash. So my Chatzer Chadash, what do you mean the new courtyard? Omar. So we say, Omar Rabbi Yechanan says, they made new laws, and one of the laws was, they said, Tvul Yom, a Tvul, you went to the mikveh already, still Al Yechonis al Machnal Via. It's the rabbis who said that a Tvul Yom should not walk into Harabayis, or Machnal Via, should walk in Harabayis. So therefore, it's only Midrabanan. This long Taisha here has a discussion. How can Rabbi Yechanan argue with the Brisa? And Taisha says that Rav, the first Amoira, has a right to argue with Tanoim, but Rabbi Yechanan doesn't. And he said clearly Rabbi Yechanan doesn't. He this long Taisha he says that, but rather he says because they're arguing if a Tvul Yom of a Zav is treated like a Zav or a degree lower because he went to the mikveh already, that in fact is an argument of other Tanoim, and therefore Rabbi Yechanan is not creating a new opinion. He's just siding with one of those Tanoim. But I remember clearly as a Taisus, I thought it was above Mitzvah, the end of Mitzvah, I'm not sure if it's there, but I remember seeing another Taisus where clearly Rabbi Yechanan was also able to argue with Tanoim. But this long Taisus said clearly not so. Taking one further. So now my question is as follows. This is the question that was asked, Rabbi Yisha asked Ula. If you can tell me that Bia b'mikdash Bia, you just said before that even a partial entrance is considered as if you walked inside. Heichi mayil yodei b'behainus. So let me ask you a question. So you have this mitzvah, that was standing by the gateway. Now this mitzvah is allowed to stand there because the Torah said clearly the mitzvah sticks his hands inside and he gets the oil and blood on his toes and right thumb and earlobe. That says clearly. But this guy's also zav. And even if you're going to tell me that that's only with the rabbanon in the courtyard, there's a nashim, but in the base of Mikdash itself, there's an iser asay here as well, and asay of kares. because inside any tumor is not allowed to walk into the actual Beis Hamikdash itself, or into the Ezes Yisrael, in that section over there. So forget about the courtyard, forget that's all Drabanan. But you telling me that this Zav should be standing there, and he's a Mitzayra, and he's going to stick his thing somehow because the Mitzayra needs the oil, but at the same time he's a Zav. So how are we dismissing? We're ignoring the fact that he's Zav because we have an urgent Korban Pesach and we don't want him to be over Karis. But on the other hand, you're making him proactively doing an Avera which gets Karis, sticking his thumbs in, and a Zav is not permitted inside the Beis Hamikdash. No one said that's Rabbanon. That's not only Matar, you get Karis if a tummy goes in. If you hold that a partial entrance is considered an entrance. So he asked Ula, so what's going on here? Hey, behind it, how can he put his hand in? Either we just say Pesach or that is Karis. He said to him, Mitunach, you're very low. From this very question you're asking me, you should know the answer itself. Why? Shiny Mitzvah. What about a Mitzvah? A Mitzvah is not allowed to even be in the Shalayim, and yet you make a special dispensation that he can walk all the way inside and stand there in the Shan stick his thumbs into the Machne Shchina, with the Ezras Yisrael. We make a special dispensation. Once the Torah pulled away that Aveda, all the other Avedas get dragged along with it as well, drag along. So it also pulls away the Avera of the Zav. But shiny Mitzvah, since we permitted already the Tzaras, he also shouldn't be able to stick his thumb in. So also remove the Isa of Keri. That's what Ula answered. Once you eliminate one, then the next layer goes with it. Rabbi Yisrael said, well, it's a big chiddush. So he said, you know what? Based on this, Ksavar Ula holds that, because the din is that if the majority of we learned in Rav Shachim, we had Ozen if the majority of the people are Tameh, if the majority of the people are tummy comes to Korban Pesach, we suspend the laws of Tumah, we proceed with the Korban Pesach. But if the majority of people are tummy, not tummy mace, but tummy zav, for example, there's no dispensation. It's only when tummy mess. So that's a question. So says Rabbi Yosef, based on Ula, I would say if Reuben zavim, majority of the people, let's say, had an emission, and then Vanasa tummy mace, and then there's another layer of tummy mace. At Pesach, since the law is that if majority of people are tummy mace, we're going to eliminate that tumah and allow them to bring Korban Pesach. So we'll remove the other layer as well. We'll remove the zav based on what you just said. Once one layer is removed and they're on top of each other, we'll remove the other one. Once one's been, the other one's permitted. I said. I said, meet them, but I don't understand. Abaye said, Abaye never lets his teachers go without understanding themselves, explaining themselves. He said, what are you talking about? Over there, first you were Mitzayra. That's that was the bedrock. That was the first layer. And then on top of that, you became a Zav. Here, the other way around. First you were a Zav, and then you became Tummy Mace. So just because we remove the Tumas Mace, how does that remove the Zav? So Abaye said, meet dummy. How do you compare? Tumah Ishtarai, Zivul Ishtarai. The Tumah, the second layer was removed, but not the first layer. Then Abaye said, to defend his own Rebbe, which is interesting, he said, maybe what you meant to say was, maybe my teacher, this is what you meant to say. The other way around. The first layer was Tamei Mace, and then the next layer that became Zav, and since when Erev Pesach, we're going to remove the bottom layer of the Tamei Mace, the drag along will be remove the Zav. Just like by the Mitzayda, once you remove the Mitzayda, we remove the Zav as well. Is that what you're trying to say? Reuben Tamei Mason, what happened was if the jar of Tamei Mace, Vanasa Zav became Zavim, Hoyel, Vahutul Tamasan, since we were permitted Tumah, Hutul Zavasan. Is that what you're saying? Oh, maybe said, yeah, good. Exactly what I'm saying. Says Abaye, but I'm still not happy. But even if you said that, doesn't make any difference. You know why? Akati loy dummy. You cannot compare the two. Very interesting. There's two concepts. Sometimes we say that we permit something. The Torah, for example, a Matzayda standing in Shan Nikolar. It's not that, well, you tell me we have no choice. The Torah says for Matzayda, I remove the law of Tumah, put your thumb through into the Machne Shchina, into the Ezes Yisrael, in order to get your blood. That's called Hutra. Tchuya is that really it's wrong, but we have no choice, because it's more important to do this than that. So we have a discussion when we say that Korban Pesach, the majority of people are Tummy Mace, will suspend the rules and bring the Korban Pesach. There's an argument we have in whether it's Duchuya or Hutra. Do we say that Torah says, in this case, I remove the rules of Tumah as far as the Korban Pesach is concerned, you can shecht it, you can eat it, but shecht it? Or is it Duchuya? It's still wrong, but the mitzvah Korban Pesach is more important, so it pushes it away. But it's still, it's an Avera still. So, he says, how can you compare the two? Mitzayra the Teru, the Torah says that that's what the Mitzayra should do. So it's totally mutter. So Hoyel the Ishta. So therefore, once the Torah, it's not that it pushes away. There's no Aver at all. So also when it comes to the Ziva, the Tvul Yam Ziva, it goes away completely. But Tuma, that if somebody is Tumi mess. Erev Pesach, we say, you know what? Go ahead and bring her Pesach. You're still Tomei. It's still wrong. You have no choice, and therefore, maybe only that got pushed away. But who said that the Zav gets pushed away as well? So I don't agree with you, Rabbi Yosef. Amalei Rava. So Rava says, interesting. Rava came sort of in defense of Rabbi Yosef. Adrab, Ivchem Estabra. In logic, it should be the other way around. Mitzayda had Teru. Mitzayda, the Teru said there's no problem with Mitzayda. So there's nothing being pulled away here. There's no Isser. So in logic, the Zava part should not be pulled away. It shouldn't be pulled away. Who said the Zava part gets maybe talking not like Ula, maybe the Zava part, or like the Bryce said, maybe it shouldn't get pushed away. But Tumah, Duchuya, when it comes to Tumah, it gets pushed away. Once something gets pushed away and you put another layer of Zav, once it gets pushed, maybe you push the Zav with it as well. So in logic, you can argue the other way around. But bottom line is, Meklal, the Gemara concludes, value, both of them should both hold that Tumah, Duchuya, B'tzibur. This, that Erev Pesach, Tumah, you can bring Korban Pesach, is only the laws of Duchuya we're pushing away. Nothing to do with Hutra that we allow it. It's only Duchuya that we push it away. Okay, we'll continue tomorrow, Mitzvah, this discussion about a partial entrance. Is that considered an entrance or not? Okay, have a good day. See you tomorrow, Mitzvah.
Bye-bye.